I gave the alien princess a star bracelet. She whispered an offer meant only for us. The market was alive with lights and sounds that no human had ever seen before. Shimmering stalls lined the streets, selling glowing fruits, tools that floated in midair, and fabrics that changed colors when touched. Strange alien species haggled over prices, their voices a mix of clicks, hums, and melodic tones that Evan struggled to understand. Despite the chaos, he moved with purpose, weaving through the crowd with careful steps, keeping his eyes on the prize he had worked so hard to create. In the corner of the bazaar, hidden behind a stall of shimmering cloths, he finally spotted her, Princess Liara. Even from a distance, her presence was impossible to ignore. Her tall, slender frame moved with grace, every motion controlled and elegant, as if the very air bent around her. Her skin had a faint silver glow, and her eyes, deep violet with specks of gold, scanned the crowd with sharp intelligence. Unlike the humans who often gawped openly at alien royalty, Evan felt a strange calm. He had studied her movements, memorized her routines, and today he would approach her. He adjusted the bracelet in his hand, feeling the cold metal and smooth crystal against his palm. It was a small thing, delicate yet intricate, designed to fit perfectly around her slender wrist. He had spent weeks in his tiny workshop aboard the trading ship, combining human craftsmanship with rare crystals harvested from meteorites. To a normal human eye, it might have seemed just a piece of jewelry, but Evan knew it carried a subtle secret. Each crystal pulsed faintly, reacting to touch and thought, a technology far beyond what most humans understood. Still, he was unsure if the princess would see its significance or if she would dismiss it as a trinket. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. Every step felt heavy, as if the universe itself was testing him. Alien merchants barely noticed him, but the moment he entered the princess's view, the world seemed to shift. Liara's eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, the crowded bazaar faded. Her expression was neutral, yet there was a flicker of curiosity in her gaze. Humans were common, predictable. She rarely spared them a second thought, yet here was one who dared approach her, offering something without expectation or fear. "Princess Liara," Evan said, keeping his voice steady, I have something for you." She tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. Then, with a grace that made him swallow nervously, she gestured for him to come closer. Evan knelt slightly, holding out the bracelet. "It's a gift, from me." Liara's eyes narrowed as she examined it. The metal and crystal shimmered under the market lights, and she reached out, taking it delicately in her hand. Her fingers brushed his for a moment, and he felt an unexpected warmth, as if the simple contact had sent ripples through the air between them. "It is beautiful," she said softly, her voice lilting in a way that sounded almost musical to his ears. She turned it over in her hand, inspecting the intricate patterns he had etched into the crystals. "You made this yourself?" "Yes," he admitted. "It's something from a human." "I thought you might like it." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, leaning closer, her lips barely moving above his ear, she whispered words that sent shivers down his spine. "This is not for others. It is meant for us." Evan froze. The words were brief, almost a secret, but the weight behind them was undeniable. 1,000 questions pressed against the corners of his mind, but he dared not speak. He nodded once, a subtle acknowledgement that he understood, even if he did not fully. "Come with me," she said, straightening. Her hand stayed on the bracelet for a heartbeat longer than necessary, a silent promise he could not yet interpret. Then she turned, gliding through the crowd with Evan at her side, the bracelet resting lightly against her wrist. They reached a small alleyway that led to her waiting ship. Unlike the bustling market, the alley was quiet, almost serene. Strange plants with glowing leaves leaned over the walls, and the ground beneath them hummed softly, vibrating with a life force that Evan had never felt. The ship itself was massive, gleaming with metallic blue and silver, almost alive in its design. It towered over him as they approached the entrance, and he felt a mix of awe and nervousness. Once aboard, the ship's interior was even more astonishing. Transparent walls offered a view of distant stars and swirling nebulae, while soft lights guided the way. Alien technology hummed quietly, its purpose hidden but powerful. Liara led him to a chamber with a panoramic view of the cosmos, the kind of view humans only dreamed of seeing. "This ship, it's incredible," Evan breathed, stepping closer to the window. She studied him with her violet eyes as though weighing his reaction. You have courage, human. Few would follow me aboard like this. I, I just wanted to give you the bracelet, he said, unsure if he sounded too small, too insignificant compared to her grand presence. I didn't expect anything in return. Liara tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. Most humans do not understand the weight of small gifts, but you do. That is why you are here. Evan's heart raced. Here because of the bracelet. Partly, she admitted, her voice low, filled with a weight he could feel even without understanding the language fully. The bracelet is more than it seems. It is not jewelry. It is ancient technology, a relic of my people's history. It responds to qualities I see in you. Courage, ingenuity, loyalty. Evan stared at her, disbelief and wonder mingling. Me, why would a human? You are different, she said simply. I can feel it. Humans have potential that many of my people do not recognize, and you may be the key to something important. Something that could change the course of my empire. The words hung in the air, heavy and impossible to ignore. Evan swallowed hard. He had imagined adventures, but never anything like this. The fate of an entire alien empire, its politics, secrets, and power, resting in the hands of a single human. It was thrilling, terrifying, and entirely unbelievable. Liara walked over to a console, her fingers tracing patterns that made the bracelet shimmer faintly in response. The bracelet chose you, she continued, eyes never leaving his. It recognizes potential in beings who can think beyond the limits of their kind. I offer you a chance to see more, to do more if you are willing. Evan felt a shiver run down his spine. I don't know if I'm ready for that. She tilted her head, her expression softening. You will not be alone, I will guide you, but you must decide, human. Curiosity alone will not be enough. You must act with courage and with heart. He nodded slowly, determination growing inside him. I want to try. For the first time, Liara allowed a faint smile to touch her lips. Then the journey begins. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She showed him the ship, introduced him to a few of her advisors, and allowed him to see parts of the galaxy he had only read about in human books. Every star, every planet seemed alive with possibility. Evan felt small, yes, but also incredibly alive. He was part of something larger than he had ever imagined. As the stars streaked past the ship's viewports, he thought about the bracelet again. What had seemed like a simple gift now felt like a symbol of trust, of recognition, and of potential. He realized that the princess's offer, her whisper meant only for him, was not just about loyalty or courage. It was about choice, about stepping into the unknown and shaping something far greater than himself. Hours later, when the ship finally slowed near a distant nebula, Liara spoke again. There are dangers ahead. Many will not understand why a human is here, why the bracelet chose you. Some may wish to see us fail. But if you are brave, if you are clever, we may succeed where others have not. Evan swallowed. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but he felt a spark of excitement. Then I will do my best. Good, Liara said, her gaze sweeping over the stars. Your best may be all that stands between chaos and order, between war and peace. And for the first time, Evan truly understood the meaning of the princess's words. This was not just a gift. This was a chance, an offer meant only for them. The stars outside shimmered as the ship moved forward, and Evan felt a thrill that he had never known. Adventure awaited, danger awaited, and perhaps destiny itself. But for the first time, he was not afraid. Because he was human, and sometimes humans could do what others could not. The ship glided silently through the endless black of space, stars streaking past like silver threads. Evan watched the view, still amazed, but his mind was crowded with questions. What exactly was the princess's offer? How could one human possibly make a difference in an alien empire? And most of all, why had the bracelet chosen him? Liara noticed his thoughtful expression. You have many questions, she said, her voice calm but firm. And you will have answers in time. But first, you must see the truth behind the empire, the danger that lies hidden, and why I came to you. Evan turned to her, trying to hide his nervousness. I want to understand. I don't know if I can. You can, she said simply, meeting his eyes. Humans often underestimate themselves. That is their greatest strength. You will see soon enough. She gestured to a large hollow display that emerged from the floor, showing a three-dimensional map of star systems, planets, and glowing lines connecting them. This is my empire, Liara explained. The stars you see are not just lights. They are territories, each governed by rulers loyal to the crown, or at least loyal in appearance. But beneath the surface there is unrest. Greed, ambition, betrayal. Some want my rule to fail. Some want the empire to crumble. Evan leaned closer, squinting at the glowing lines. And the bracelet, how does it fit into all this? The bracelet, Liara said, lifting her wrist to show the crystal shining faintly, is more than a gift. It is a relic from our ancestors, designed to recognize those with insight, courage, and loyalty. It responds to intelligence, morality, and ingenuity. It chose you because you possess these qualities. I do not know why a human, but it did. That is why I brought you aboard. Evan stared at it. The metal felt cold, but the crystal pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. So it's like it trusts me, Liara nodded. In a way, but trust alone will not be enough. There are forces already moving against us. If you accept my offer, you will face dangers humans rarely encounter. You will have to think quickly, act boldly, and sometimes risk everything. Evan swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. I understand. I'll do my best. Liara's violet eyes softened. Your best may be the difference between order and chaos, between peace and war. For a while, silence settled between them. The stars outside stretched endlessly, and Evan thought about his life back on Earth, or what he remembered of it. This adventure, this galaxy, this princess, it was all beyond comprehension. Yet somehow it felt right. First, Liara said after a long pause, you must see the reality of my empire. There are territories in revolt, cities where the council's influence has decayed, and systems where merchants and smugglers operate freely, ignoring laws. The empire is fragile in ways few would imagine. She pressed a few buttons on the console, and the ship's engines hummed, redirecting them toward a distant system marked in red. We are going to one of these systems, she continued. A planet called Vierlia. The council claims it is loyal, but I have reasons to doubt. I need you to see it for yourself. Evan leaned closer to the map, tracing the glowing lines to the red-marked planet. What exactly am I supposed to do there? You observe, Liara said, her tone sharp but patient. You notice patterns humans often overlook. You ask questions others do not dare ask. You think in ways my advisors cannot, and eventually you will act. He nodded slowly, trying to absorb everything. And if I fail? Liara's gaze was steady. Then the consequences will be severe, but failure is only a lesson if you learn from it. Courage is not the absence of fear, Evan. Courage is acting even when fear grips your heart. The journey to Vierlia was long, spanning several hours of light-speed travel. Evan spent much of the time studying the ship, learning from Liara about alien technologies and observing the bracelet. Each crystal seemed to pulse more strongly as he grew more confident, almost like it was responding to his thoughts and emotions. He began to sense that it was not merely a passive tool, but an active guide, subtly nudging him toward choices that would shape the future. When the ship finally exited lightspeed near Vierlia, the planet hung before them, a swirling ball of green and blue clouds with jagged continents below. Cities glowed faintly through the atmosphere, and Evan could see the shimmer of energy fields that kept the population controlled or contained, depending on one's perspective. Liara guided him to a smaller shuttle. We cannot arrive in my flagship, she explained. It would attract attention. We must blend in, observe, and gather information. You will see why the bracelet matters soon enough. Evan nodded, feeling his heart pound. He had faced dangerous situations before, engineering accidents, high-pressure negotiations, but nothing like this. This was the real thing, a human stepping into the heart of an alien empire, under the watchful eyes of a princess who trusted him with secrets that could topple rulers. The shuttle descended silently into the outskirts of Vierlia's largest city. The streets were busy with alien life, merchants calling out in melodic tones, vehicles hovering above the ground, and citizens moving with mechanical precision, as if guided by invisible forces. Yet something felt wrong. Evan noticed the subtle signs almost instinctively. Areas of over-policed sectors, citizens glancing nervously at shadows, and hidden surveillance drones hovering in corners. Liara's voice broke his observation. Do you see it? She asked, pointing to a cluster of buildings near the city center. The council has planted loyalists here. They control the city's resources and spread misinformation to maintain power, but not all citizens are loyal. Some resist quietly. You must learn who can be trusted and who cannot. Evan's pulse quickened. And the bracelet, will it help with that? It will guide you, Liara said. It reacts to human intuition and morality. If you make choices with honesty and courage, it will assist you. But it cannot think for you. That part is up to you. They moved through the city cautiously, blending in with the crowd. Evan observed everything. The expressions on faces, the way merchants exchanged goods, the subtle signals that indicated secret alliances. It was overwhelming, but his mind began to adjust. Humans were known for adaptability, and he realized he had an advantage. While alien species often followed strict patterns of thought, he could notice irregularities, predict outcomes, and improvise. Hours passed in careful observation. Evan began identifying potential allies among the citizens, small pockets of resistance who whispered about unfair taxation and corrupt officials. He noted council agents who seemed too eager to observe, their movements calculated and precise. Every action and reaction added pieces to a puzzle that he had never expected to solve. Finally, Liara led him to a small rooftop overlooking the central plaza. The council's agents were gathering for an evening assembly, their uniforms crisp and their demeanor arrogant. "Tonight you will act," Liara whispered. "You will not fight with weapons, but with intelligence, observation, and persuasion. You will show the council that humans are not weak, that courage and thought can change outcomes, even here." Evan felt a surge of adrenaline. He was just a human, yes, but humans were capable of ingenuity, of unpredictable decisions that could turn the tide. He clenched his fists, feeling the bracelet pulse softly against his skin, as if encouraging him. The assembly began, with council agents speaking loudly about loyalty and obedience. Citizens below whispered anxiously, and tension rippled through the plaza. Evan noted the subtle signs of fear, resistance, and dishonesty. Then he saw it, a council agent attempting to manipulate a merchant with threats, unaware of Evan observing from above. Evan acted instinctively. He relayed instructions to Liara, who discreetly used her influence to redirect security forces, creating confusion. The agent faltered, caught off guard by Evan's unexpected intervention. A small ripple of defiance spread among the citizens as they realized someone was watching out for them. Liara's eyes shone with approval. "Well done," she said quietly. "You are beginning to understand. This is not about fighting with weapons. It is about seeing clearly, acting wisely, and inspiring courage. The bracelet chose you because you can do this." Evan felt a mix of pride and disbelief. He was just a human, yet here he was, influencing the course of an alien city, guiding the princess, and seeing the subtle threads of power that few others could. The weight of responsibility was immense, but for the first time he also felt capable. As night fell over Violia, the city lights shimmered, and Evan realized that this was only the beginning. The empire was vast, filled with danger and intrigue. The bracelet had chosen him for a reason, and the princess's offer had placed him on a path unlike any other. And somewhere deep in the back of his mind, he felt the quiet thrill of possibility. Perhaps humans were not so small after all. For the first time, Evan believed that courage, ingenuity, and loyalty could truly cross the stars, and that one human could change the course of an alien empire. The night air on Violia was thick with tension, and even from their rooftop perch, Evan could feel it pressing down. On the city, the citizens below moved carefully, their eyes darting to shadows as if expecting trouble to strike at any moment. The council agents, confident in their control, patrolled the streets with mechanical precision. But Evan could see the cracks, small gestures of hesitation, subtle glances exchanged between merchants, the silent rebellion simmering under the surface. Liara stood beside him, her violet eyes scanning the plaza. She was calm, almost serene, yet the aura of authority she carried made the guards instinctively step aside. "This is where observation turns into action," she said softly. "You will learn more about the Empire tonight than you could from any lesson or map." Evan swallowed, trying to steady his racing heart. He had watched and learned, identified allies and threats, but now it was time to test what he had understood. The bracelet pulsed faintly against his wrist, a warm glow that seemed to respond to his determination. It was as if it knew what was about to come and was urging him forward. Liara gestured toward a narrow street leading into the heart of the city. "There is a merchant, a supplier of critical resources, being pressured by the council. If we can help him resist, even in a small way, we send a message that the council does not control everything." Evan nodded, moving silently beside her. As they approached the street, he noticed the merchant, a small, wiry alien with green-scaled skin, being cornered by two council agents. They brandished energy rods, their stance meant to intimidate rather than harm. The merchant trembled, clutching a satchel filled with supplies. Evan's mind raced. He needed a plan. Humans had a talent for improvisation, for seeing solutions that were not obvious. He whispered to Liara, outlining a distraction using nearby crates and a small ignition device he had carried from the ship. Liara's eyes widened, impressed by the simplicity and effectiveness of his idea. She nodded. "Do it!" With careful precision, Evan triggered the device. A small explosion of sparks erupted from a stack of crates across the street. The council agents turned immediately, their attention drawn away from the merchant. In that brief moment, Evan and Liara moved. Liara's presence alone was enough to unnerve the agents, but Evan stepped forward, using the chaos to create confusion. The merchant seized the opportunity to flee, carrying his satchel safely behind them. The council agents recovered quickly, but by then, Evan and Liara had vanished into a side alley, blending into the shadows. "Good thinking," Liara said quietly, her gaze meeting his. "You acted with courage and precision. The bracelet responds to that. It will guide you further, but only if you continue to act wisely." Evan's chest swelled with a mix of pride and relief. He had helped in a small way, but it was enough to make a difference. Enough to show that humans could be more than observers. They could act decisively and effectively, even in an alien world. They moved deeper into the city, careful to avoid detection. Liara led him to a hidden chamber beneath an old building, a secret hub used by those who resisted the council quietly. The room was dimly lit, filled with maps, holographic screens, and notes written in a variety of alien languages. Citizens, merchants, and a few sympathetic guards gathered there, speaking in hushed tones. "This is the resistance," Liara explained. "They are small but dedicated. They cannot fight openly or the council would destroy them. But with guidance, with intelligence, and with careful planning, they can survive and influence change." Evan looked around, amazed. The diversity was staggering. Different species, different shapes and sizes, all united by a common desire for fairness and freedom. And yet he noticed the subtle signs of fear. Every glance over the shoulder, every pause in conversation, spoke of a population living under constant threat. Liara turned to him. "You will help me assess the resistance. Learn who can be trusted, who has the skill to act, and who may be compromised. Your perspective is valuable because it is different. You are human, and humans think in ways others often cannot anticipate." Evan nodded, feeling the weight of the responsibility. He began speaking with the members of the resistance, asking questions carefully, noting responses and reactions. Some were eager to share, others cautious. He quickly realized that small details, a hesitation in speech, a glance at a hidden doorway, the way hands rested on concealed weapons, could reveal more than hours of interrogation. The bracelet pulsed lightly against his wrist, and he noticed that when he made a correct observation, the crystals glowed slightly brighter. It was subtle but unmistakable. The bracelet was not just a tool, it was a guide, a measure of insight and understanding. It responded to the choices he made, encouraging careful thought and observation. Hours passed in careful analysis. Evan compiled information, identifying reliable members, potential threats, and areas where the council's influence was strongest. He suggested small, tactical actions that could protect the resistance without provoking direct confrontation. Liara listened closely, her expression unreadable but her eyes sharp, noting his intuition and practical reasoning. Then came a sudden alert. One of the resistance scouts whispered urgently, pointing toward a council patrol moving through the alley outside. They were more numerous than expected, their presence deliberate. It was clear that someone within the council had learned of their activities. Liara's hand went to the bracelet and it glowed more intensely. "We are being watched," she said calmly. "This is a test of strategy and composure. Evan, you will help guide our response." Evan felt his pulse quicken, but he did not panic. He had studied patterns, observed behavior, and noted the council's reliance on intimidation. Using the alleyways and the city's complex layout, he devised a diversion. He instructed the resistance to set up small smoke devices, while Liara and a few trusted allies moved through hidden passages to flank the council patrol. The plan was executed with precision. Smoke filled the alley, disorienting the council agents. Alarms blared, drawing attention, while Evan directed the resistance to safe zones. Liara moved gracefully, neutralizing threats without lethal force, her presence commanding both respect and fear. The council patrol, confused and overwhelmed, retreated after a tense chase through the winding streets. When the danger passed, the room fell silent. The resistance members looked to Evan, some with gratitude, others with awe. He felt a strange pride, not arrogance, but a deep sense of accomplishment. He had contributed meaningfully, and his choices had mattered. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder, her violet eyes soft but intense. "You see now," she said, "why I chose you. Humans are underestimated, often dismissed. But your mind, your courage, your ability to act decisively, these are qualities that can shape events in ways many of my people cannot. The bracelet recognized this in you, and I do as well." Evan swallowed, the weight of her words settling in. I don't know what to say, I just did what I thought was right." "And that is exactly why it worked," Liara replied. "Courage, thought, and morality, not fear, not arrogance, that is what matters." The rest of the night was spent reviewing their observations, planning next steps, and preparing for potential threats. Evan realized that this was only the beginning. The empire was vast, filled with dangers and political intrigue. Every action they took could ripple outward, affecting countless lives. The bracelet's gentle pulses reminded him constantly of the stakes and the responsibility. As dawn approached, the city below began to quiet. Evan looked out from the hidden chamber, watching the first light touch the rooftops. For a moment, he allowed himself a deep breath, feeling the weight of what he had done and the promise of what lay ahead. Liara stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "There will be more challenges," she said. "More decisions that will test your judgment, courage, and loyalty. Some will be easy, many will not. But you are ready. Humans are adaptable, inventive, and resilient. These are qualities that can turn the tide in a galaxy that often underestimates you." Evan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He had always thought of humans as small, fragile, insignificant on a galactic scale. But here, under the stars and beside a princess who believed in him, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was exactly what others overlooked: unpredictability, resourcefulness, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The bracelet pulsed warmly against his wrist, and Evan felt a quiet sense of connection, a bond not just with Liara, but with a larger purpose. He understood now that this was more than a mission. It was a partnership, a chance to prove that even a single human could make a difference in the fate of an entire empire. And as the first light of Virelia's sun touched the city, Evan knew that the coming days would be filled with danger, intrigue, and choices that could not be undone. Yet for the first time, he felt ready. He had been chosen for a reason, and he would rise to meet it, one careful, courageous step at a time. The bracelet gleamed faintly in the morning light, a reminder of trust, potential, and the bond forming between a human and an alien princess. And somewhere deep within the city, hidden eyes watched them, waiting to see what would unfold next. Evan took a deep breath, feeling the hum of life and energy around him. He was just one human, yes, but sometimes that was enough. For now, he had survived the night, influenced a rebellion, and earned the trust of one of the galaxy's most powerful beings. And with Liara beside him, guiding him and trusting him, he knew the next challenge would be even greater, and that he was ready to face it. The sun hung low over Virelia, casting long shadows across the city streets, but Evan hardly noticed the warmth. His mind was focused entirely on the events of the previous night, the resistance, the council patrol, and the subtle ways in which humans could influence outcomes. Every step he had taken had mattered, every decision had a ripple effect. And now the real test was about to begin. Liara's ship waited discreetly outside the city. She moved with quiet purpose, her eyes sharp, taking in the surroundings as they made their way back to the landing zone. Evan followed, feeling the weight of responsibility settle firmly on his shoulders. He had learned to observe, to act, and to improvise, but he also knew that the Empire's enemies would not hesitate to exploit any misstep. "This is the moment, Evan," Liara said softly as they approached the shuttle. "I am about to reveal the full nature of my offer to you. But you must understand, it is not a reward. It is a responsibility, a path that could alter the course of my empire and possibly more." Evan swallowed, his pulse quickening. I am ready, I think." Liara allowed herself a faint smile. "You will not merely think, you will act." Humans often underestimate themselves, but that is what makes your perspective invaluable. Are you willing to take the next step? I am, Evan said firmly, though a knot of doubt twisted in his stomach. Once aboard the ship, Liara led him to a private chamber. The walls glowed faintly with alien symbols, and the air hummed softly, filled with energy he could not name. She gestured for him to sit. The bracelet you gave me, and that I now wear, was not just a symbol of your thoughtfulness. It is ancient technology, designed to guide and test those who are capable. It chose you because it sensed potential. Evan looked down at his wrist, where the bracelet pulsed faintly. Potential for what exactly? Liara leaned forward, her eyes serious. The council is fractured. Some wish to maintain order, others seek power for themselves. There are factions within my empire who would see me removed, replaced, or worse. I cannot fight them alone. And yet, even among my advisors, few can see the threads of influence and deception as clearly as you can. That is why I brought you here, to become my partner in shaping the Empire's future. Evan felt his stomach tight. Partner, like an envoy. More than that, Liara said quietly. A confidant, a guide, someone who can act where I cannot, who can think beyond the constraints of my people, and who can influence outcomes that affect millions. You will have the freedom to move, observe, and act, but with that freedom comes responsibility. He nodded slowly, trying to process the weight of her words. And if I fail? Liara's violet eyes met his, steady and unwavering. Then consequences will follow. But failure is only permanent if you do not learn from it. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in spite of it. You have already shown courage. Now you must choose to continue, fully aware of the risks. Evan took a deep breath. The stars outside the ship seemed to hold their breath with him. I accept. I'll do everything I can. Liara's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. Good, then we begin. Over the next few hours, she explained the council's structure, the factions vying for power, and the subtle ways in which influence flowed through the empire. Evan listened intently, asking questions, noting contradictions, and learning to see patterns that were invisible to most. The bracelet pulsed softly as he absorbed the information, almost like it was guiding him to understand connections he had not yet noticed. Then came a revelation that made Evan's heart race. One of Liara's trusted advisors, a high-ranking official named Kale, had been manipulating information, spreading false reports, and subtly undermining her authority. His ambition was dangerous, and his influence extended to multiple star systems. If left unchecked, he could topple Liara and seize power for himself. Liara's expression hardened. Kale believes humans are insignificant. That is his greatest mistake. He does not realize that you, Evan, are capable of seeing what he cannot. The bracelet has chosen you because of that insight. Together, we can expose him before he acts. Evan felt a surge of determination. This was the moment to prove himself, not just to the princess, but to the Empire and perhaps even to humanity. How do we stop him? He asked, voice steady despite the tension. Liara outlined a plan. They would need to gather evidence of Kale's manipulations, rally the loyalty of key officials, and neutralize his influence without sparking open conflict. It was a delicate balance, requiring intelligence, strategy, and careful timing. Over the next few days, Evan and Liara worked in tandem. They moved through cities, observing, questioning, and quietly influencing decisions. Evan's human perspective proved invaluable. He noticed subtle signals, inconsistencies in reports, and patterns of behavior that aliens often overlooked. Each time he acted wisely, the bracelet pulsed, glowing faintly as if affirming his judgment. During one covert operation, they discovered Kale meeting with a group of mercenaries, plotting to disrupt supply lines and create chaos in a loyal system. Evan observed carefully, noting the mercenaries' tactics, the routes they planned to take, and the weaknesses in their strategy. He relayed the information to Liara, who used it to preemptively reroute supplies and neutralize the threat without confrontation. The resistance members they had aided on Violia also played a role, subtly assisting in communications and providing shelter for allies. Evan coordinated these efforts with precision, realizing that humans had a unique ability to improvise and adapt under pressure. It was a skill that aliens respected but rarely possessed. Despite the progress, tension remained high. Kale's network was extensive, and one wrong move could reveal their plans. Evan often stayed awake for hours, analyzing patterns, planning contingencies, and considering every possible outcome. The bracelet pulsed softly, a constant reminder of the responsibility he carried. One evening, as they observed a council meeting from a hidden vantage point, Kale's arrogance became evident. He spoke confidently, dismissing reports of unrest and manipulating data to suit his narrative. Evan leaned closer to Liara. "He's clever, but he underestimates us." "He doesn't see the connections we do." Liara nodded, her eyes sharp. "Exactly, that is why you are here. He cannot anticipate human reasoning. That will be our advantage." Evan's mind raced. He devised a subtle plan to plant evidence, expose Kale's duplicity to other council members, and shift opinion in Liara's favor, all without direct confrontation. The bracelet pulsed more strongly as he laid out each step in his mind, a quiet guide affirming his logic. The next day, their plan went into action. Evidence of Kale's manipulation surfaced in meetings, intercepted communications, and reports from loyal officials. Rumors of his duplicity spread, carefully orchestrated by Evan and the resistance. Kale's confidence faltered, and cracks began to appear in his network. But Kale was cunning. He attempted to counteract their efforts by sowing further confusion and targeting key allies. Evan anticipated these moves, using the bracelet's guidance and his own intuition to stay one step ahead. Each decision was a test, each action a risk, but with Liara by his side and the bracelet pulsing gently against his wrist, he felt prepared. Finally, the moment of confrontation arrived. Kale attempted to convene a secret assembly to consolidate power, unaware that Evan had already alerted Liara and the loyal officials. When the meeting began, Kale found himself isolated, his supporters hesitant, and his manipulations exposed. Evidence compiled by Evan and the resistance left him no room to maneuver. Liara addressed the assembly with calm authority, presenting the proof and guiding the council toward justice. Kale's ambitions crumbled before the gathered officials, and he was removed from power without violence. The Empire's loyalty shifted subtly, recognizing both Liara's leadership and the unique insight of the human who had helped protect it. Evan felt a mix of relief and pride. The bracelet pulsed warmly, as if acknowledging his success. Liara's eyes met his, her expression softening. "You see now," she said quietly, "why humans are capable of more than others expect. You have proven courage, intellect, and loyalty. These are qualities that shape empires." Evan shook his head in disbelief. I just did what I thought was right. "And that is why it worked," Liara replied. "Courage and wisdom combined, you are not merely a participant, Evan. You are a force that can influence the future." As the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the streets, Evan realized the full weight of the princess's offer. It was not just about trust or about the bracelet. It was about partnership, about responsibility, and about the belief that even a single human could alter the course of history in ways few could imagine. And somewhere deep within him, a quiet certainty grew. He was ready for the challenges ahead, whatever dangers the Empire might throw at him. Because he was human, and sometimes that was enough. The stars stretched endlessly before them as Liara's ship moved smoothly through the void, carrying Evan toward the heart of the Empire. He had faced dangers, observed hidden conspiracies, and acted decisively in ways that changed outcomes. Yet despite all they had accomplished, he knew the final challenge was still ahead. Kale's removal had stabilized part of the council, but other threats remained. Factions that hungered for power, spies hidden in plain sight, and citizens unsure of which side to trust. Liara stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on distant systems, her posture calm but commanding. "Evan," she said quietly, "you have proven yourself beyond expectation. But the Empire is vast and loyalty is fragile. There is one final test, one that will decide not only my leadership but the future of human and alien relations across the galaxy." Evan nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and apprehension. "What do we need to do?" She turned to him, her violet eyes intense. "You will be my envoy. You will speak to the remaining council factions, negotiate alliances, and ensure the stability of the Empire. But more than that, you will act as a symbol, a human who chose courage over fear, loyalty over self-interest, and action over passivity. Your presence will inspire those who doubt and warn those who conspire." Evan felt the bracelet pulse faintly, as if acknowledging the importance of the role. He had never imagined that one human could have such responsibility, yet somehow he felt ready. Humans were adaptable, inventive, and resilient, qualities that often went unnoticed by more rigid species. Now, those qualities would shape the future of an entire empire. Their first stop was a neutral system where the remaining council factions convened. Liara had instructed Evan to observe first, then act when the right moment arose. The council chambers were vast, with high ceilings, glowing panels, and a central platform where representatives from various star systems gathered. Some greeted them politely, others looked skeptical, whispering among themselves. Evan stayed quiet, observing every detail, the gestures, the tone of voice, the subtle signs of unease. He noticed that some council members had begun to suspect Liara's inner circle, but few had considered the presence of a human envoy. That oversight would work to their advantage. Liara addressed the council first, her voice commanding but measured. She spoke of stability, fairness, and the need to work together for the empire's future. Her words carried weight, but she was careful not to threaten or alienate any faction. She left openings for discussion, allowing council members to voice their concerns while subtly guiding the narrative toward unity. Then it was Evan's turn. He stepped forward, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes upon him. His human appearance and simple manner of speaking initially drew curious glances and skeptical whispers, but he did not falter. He spoke plainly, directly, and honestly, recounting the events on Violia, the courage of the citizens, and the subtle ways the council's own manipulations had been exposed. Sometimes, Evan said, his voice calm but firm, it is not power or technology that preserves an empire. It is action, courage, and honesty. Decisions made with thought and care can change the course of events more than threats or fear. I am human. I did not grow up in this empire, and yet I have seen what can happen when decisions are made wisely. I have seen how trust, courage, and observation can protect lives and stabilize systems. That is why I am here. Not as a conqueror, not as a ruler, but as someone who believes that together we can make this empire stronger and fairer for everyone. A stunned silence followed. Some council members frowned, skeptical of a human lecturing them on governance. But many were struck by the clarity and simplicity of his words, the logic behind his observations, and the courage to speak openly in such a high-stakes setting. Liara watched him closely, her expression unreadable. Then, a council member from a distant system spoke up, nodding. This human, he speaks truth. Perhaps we have underestimated humans too long. His insight is valuable and his courage evident. Others followed, slowly aligning with his perspective. The room, once tense with suspicion, shifted toward cooperation. Evan realized that humans had a unique strength, the ability to act decisively and honestly without the constraints of long-standing political expectations or rigid traditions. Over the next few hours, Evan and Liara guided the discussions, building alliances, exposing remaining plots, and strengthening loyalty to the crown. Each time a council member questioned, Evan responded with clarity, tact, and insight. Each time a challenge arose, the bracelet pulsed faintly, almost as if encouraging him to think one step further, to act with precision. By evening, the council had reached a consensus. Orders were clarified, loyalty strengthened, and plans for reform and fair governance were approved. The remaining factions acknowledged Liara's authority and recognized the value of the human envoy who had helped guide their decisions. Evan felt a surge of relief, but also a quiet pride. He had acted not with weapons or force, but with courage, intelligence, and integrity. The bracelet glowed faintly against his wrist, a gentle affirmation of what he had accomplished. Liara's eyes met his, softening into a rare smile. "You have done more than I expected," she said quietly, her voice carrying both admiration and respect. "You have not only helped stabilize my empire, but you have shown that humans can rise to meet challenges that others cannot even comprehend." Evan shook his head, feeling both humbled and amazed. I just acted as best I could. I didn't know what else to do." "And that is exactly why it worked," Liara replied. "Humans are not bound by the rigid expectations that many of my people follow. You see patterns, make decisions, and act with courage. That is why the bracelet chose you. That is why I offered this partnership." The following days were a celebration of sorts, though quiet and dignified. The citizens and council members recognized the stability that had been restored, the threats neutralized, and the loyalty reaffirmed. Evan moved among the people, observing, listening, and learning. Every glance, every gesture, every conversation offered insight into the complex web of life across the empire. Liara remained close, guiding him, but also allowing him freedom to act, to see, and to think independently. Their partnership had grown beyond mere strategy. It had become a bond of trust and mutual respect. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck of her flagship, looking out at the endless stars, Liara spoke softly. "You understand now, Evan, why I whispered my offer to you that day in the market. It was not about the bracelet itself, or even about immediate power. It was about trust, insight, and the recognition of potential. You have proven that humans, though underestimated, can change the course of history." Evan looked at her, feeling a sense of awe and gratitude. "I never imagined that a single human could do all this. I thought I was just giving a gift, a bracelet, but it seems it was more than that." Liara smiled faintly. "It always was. The bracelet was a symbol, a guide, and a test. But the choices were yours, and now the Empire knows that humans are not insignificant. They are capable, courageous, and invaluable when used wisely." Evan felt a quiet thrill, realizing that he had not only influenced an empire, but had also changed perceptions of humanity on a galactic scale. The stars outside shimmered with possibility, a reminder of how small actions, like giving a bracelet, could ripple outward to shape entire worlds. As the flagship moved through the cosmos, Evan and Liara stood side by side, contemplating the future. Challenges remained. Rebellions could arise, conspiracies could develop, and new threats would inevitably appear. But for the first time, Evan felt confident. He was human, yes, but humans were resilient, inventive, and brave. Those qualities had carried him this far, and they would continue to guide him. Liara's hand rested lightly on his shoulder. "The Empire is safer now because of your courage and intelligence. But more than that, you have inspired me and others to see potential where it was overlooked. That is a rare gift." Evan smiled faintly, feeling the warmth of pride and fulfillment. "I never thought giving a bracelet could lead to all this, but I'm glad I did." "And so am I," Liara said softly. Her eyes turned to the stars, thoughtful and distant, yet full of hope. "This is only the beginning. There is more to explore, more to protect, and more to build. Together, we can ensure a future where trust, courage, and wisdom guide the galaxy." Evan felt the truth in her words. He had started as a simple human, offering a gift to a princess he admired. That small act had opened doors to adventure, responsibility, and influence beyond his wildest dreams. Now, he stood at the heart of an empire, trusted, valued, and ready for the challenges ahead. The stars stretched endlessly before them, endless possibilities shimmering like diamonds across the void. And Evan, human among aliens, envoy to a princess, and symbol of courage and wisdom, felt a quiet certainty. He had proven that one human could indeed make a difference, that small actions could ripple across the galaxy, and that the future belonged to those brave enough to shape it. The bracelet glowed softly on his wrist, a reminder of trust, courage, and potential. Liara stood beside him, a partner and ally in every sense, and together they faced the stars, ready to meet whatever came next. Because sometimes one human was enough.